Banana Slam Jam.
So, man, what's the deal? Why are you here?
So I've been playing Dota for quite a while. I mean, I started back with before even Frozen Throne, so like 15, 16 years. But I always just kind of went for kills and didn't care about winning or strategy or anything until about 3 or 4 years ago is when I actually started playing to win and to learn and to improve and raising the MMR. And so now I'm sitting at, I believe, 5,400 MMR.
Okay.
I've actually gone up about 600 or 700 MMR in the last month.
Okay.
I call it not quite that much, maybe 400. So call it a hot streak, call it whatever you want, but I feel like I'm figuring some things out, but I kind of want to keep the streak going upward and not stall out.
Okay. So I would say Dota's pretty plateauy. Just to put my thought out there, it's like pretty common to like have a sudden change in understanding of the game or a patch that works for you, and suddenly you just jump 500 MMR, and then you stay there forever, and then you eventually do it again. So I can do my best to continue that streak for you. But what role are you here?
So I right now I usually queue any of the three core roles. Apologize. I play mostly safe lane, mid or off lane, but lately I've been playing mostly off lane just because I queue for the three and whatever pops up fastest is what I play.
Okay.
So actually, conveniently enough, I've been playing a lot of Brew, which I know you've been playing.
Yeah, mediocrely speaking. Yeah, continue.
Well, I mean, I'm mediocre as well. So, and then some Beastmaster and other heroes as well. But I've actually got two Brew replays. One of them
Oh, okay.
we lost. The other one we did pretty well. I felt like both of them were pretty tough lanes. One was a Void Jakiro lane. That was the one we lost. That one kind of sucked. The other one, I ended up going safe lane so that my Ursa didn't have to run into Razor. And that one, I feel like I played the lane pretty well, and that's the one that we actually won. So.
Okay, let's check it out then.
Yeah,
Real quick, there's something I like to ask, especially people of your rank. What do you think is like good and bad about Brew?
Good and bad about Bro. I mean, I feel like he can do pretty dang well in lane. He has a really hard, if not one of the hardest, spikes at level 6.
Yeah.
And he just creates a ton of space, especially in team fights, and he can basically knock one person out of the fight for a little bit. So I feel like those are kind of the best things about him. What sucks about him is he has such mana problems,
Okay.
and I feel like his farming speeds are very meh. So it does feel like there's kind of these dry spells where he's very inefficient compared to a lot of other offlaners.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate. I think the biggest thing for me about him is he has no stuns and no catch. So like
As well.
he's like a team fighter, but not an initiator. So even if you buy Blink, a lot of heroes can get away. So that's what I find most annoying about the hero. But I think your summary was pretty good, anyways. Okay, so let's go ahead and check out this lane. I think your itemization is fine if you want to level clap and spam it a couple times, and you want to go 2 mangos. That's fine with me. Okay. I would probably save my Q for the range, but that's up to you. I get like right now the ranges aren't nearly as valuable as they used to be, but I definitely consider against the heroes that can't really stop you from getting it, that I would save it for that, as opposed to using it on the melee. I think the creep drag here was good. Fast forwarding, laning stage mechanics look pretty decent. You have kind of just given up both range creeps.
Yeah. I lose a lot of them here, which is frustrating.
I'd say it's a pretty weak wand first lane. You're against Jakiro, who, like, yeah, he's going to use spells, but you're also against Void, who hardly ever uses spells.
Yeah.
And I don't mind the stick if you want to do it for, like, the mana sake of being able to utilize more spells. But I don't think it's, like, a good enough lane to value the wand. I would consider, like, going Ring of Regen towards a Helm of the Dom, going, like, the Sage's Mask towards the Vlads, like, whatever you're going to get using that extra 250 gold, I think would be really good for you. Even just buying an extra set of regen when you fly out the stick. I think this extra 250 gold you're spending this early on is really going to cost you a lot of the time, just because looking at your lane. Upgrading from stick to wand is kind of like a... It's either you're against a Bat Rider or Bristleback type hero, or it's like a really luxury thing. Like, it's 3 all stats for 250 gold. Like, it's... You know... It doesn't really do anything specific. So, unless I've solved all of my other issues in lane, I don't really go for that stick to wand upgrade. And I think if you're looking at your health and mana pool right now, you'd agree with me that your other problems in lane aren't necessarily addressed, right? So, that's why I'm pointing this out. Items tell me what you think is going right and wrong in the game at all times, whether it's the laning stage, whether or not it's the mid to late game. It's like, if you have damage issues, you can consider Radiance. If you have tankiness issues, you can consider, you know, BKBs, Vlads, ACs. If you're having initiation issues, you'd go Blink. It's like, you know, these are the things where you're telling me what you think the issues are in the game, and you're itemizing to fix them. Okay, so...
Here's a big screw up right here. I got clapped by that creep. Right when I went up to clap the creep and snipe it, he stunned me and I kind of got wrecked by it.
Yeah, you can always check the cooldown, by the way. You can click the creep, it tells you the cooldown. I don't know if you knew that.
That would have been smart to do. Yeah.
That's pretty much all that comes down to that. If you're not going to check the cooldown and you kind of just walk in and hope for the best, sometimes it'll backfire on you when it's not on cooldown.
Yeah.
Okay, so... I think in this lane, movement speed also has a lot of merit. Heroes got slows, Void has bashes, and I feel like whenever I've played Brood now, whenever my E's off cooldown, or on cooldown, I'm like pretty trash. Like, they can kind of just go on me. And when it's up, I can kind of have this like, oh, they're going on me, trade back kind of thing, and I can also play up aggressive until they go on me. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
So outside of my E, I like to have that movement speed because I can kind of like kite them around better. And it also synergizes really well with my E, because my E obviously gives 40% movement speed. Obviously, it reduces 20%, but one of the few movement speed heroes that didn't get nerfed when they changed the boots. So I'm kind of just pointing out to you what's like going wrong in the lane and how your items could have mitigated it. It's never gonna like make a losing lane a winning lane, but it'll make like a losing lane slightly less losing, a winning lane slightly more winning. It's like in my Ursa, obviously against Ursa it's even more important, but like I just against Ursa, I know if I didn't go Boots Windlace, that lane would have been even harder than it was already, just because that movement speed there is so important. And I feel like here you kind of just need to sustain through Jakiro spells. And then you can't really trade with Void because, to be honest, like Sniper and Lane is kind of like, it's not that great. And now you're kind of stuck. Okay, so this TP was...
Yeah, that was
greedy. I don't think the TP away is bad, but TPing...
TP that spot I did not mean to do. That was
that was just like a misclick?
Mistake, yeah.
I see. Yeah, so a lot of my lanes on Brew... It seems like his, like, level 5 is pretty bad. That's what it seems like to me. You have this, like, level 4 to 5 range that's pretty weak. And weathering the storm is, like, really important. It's also, like, really important. Like, I feel like most matchups, I actually, if I play properly, I win until I get to level 5 or 4-ish. And then most carries, like, outscale me with levels until I hit 6. So it's, like, levels 1 and 2 I feel pretty good. And then, like, as I go to level 3, 4, and 5, I get weaker in comparison to most other heroes. So I think you, like, going these, like, early items incorrectly, and then having that one death against the neutral, it just makes this part of the game super awkward for you. And I've had this happen to me on Brew. He's just vulnerable to this happening. Like, I had one bad death against Ursa I just played last game. And now I think what you're doing is proper. Like, you kind of just have to go to some other lane and hope to fix it.
6.
Yeah. Okay, so now that you have your 6, let's pause. Void seems like a tough kill. I don't really see how you kill Void here. What is a good kill is probably the Nature's Prophet out of all the cores is probably your best option. It's also better to go on Nature's Prophet here because their counter gank is not level 6 on Phoenix, and they don't have Chrono on Faceless Void. So the only reasons to dissuade you from ever going on Prophet are not applicable at this very moment. So I'm giving you now like all the reasons I think like who do I like now that I have this 6, where do I go? And I also think I want to think about what teammates of mine, if possible, would I choose to have with me if I utilize my 6. And so would it be Sniper or would it be like Lich Invoker? What would I rather have with me? And I think you'd agree the answer is Lich Invoker rather than Sniper. At this point, you're level 6, Void's almost level 8. He's a hero that can get away from you. It's not like a gyro where if you manage to clap him and then ult, he's gonna die probably. So I wouldn't really try to invade this Void unless I had some easy way to kill him with my teammates, and your teammates don't exactly stun or kill Void either. Invoker's like okay, but he's not bottom, so that doesn't. You can either call your Invoker to come bottom and then look and see that he has no TP, or you can go to this Invoker. So I'm just giving you my mindset, the way you need to kind of talk to yourself, and obviously it's going to be a bit different every single game, right? So maybe you get a Jakiro kill. It's not bad, obviously, but it's not exactly what I want to be doing. Okay, now Phoenix has delivered himself. No, that's funny. Oh, okay, this guy's...
Yeah, I did learn that I can't do anything to Egg right in that moment.
Yeah, if it's not an actual hero, it will not do anything. Okay, yeah, pretty good micro. Nothing wrong. I was just kind of slow-moing it to see what you did there. I'd say your team fighting is pretty decent. This is just a classic case of going to the wrong place, I would say. Like, if that core was a Nature's Prophet, I think you'd feel way better about everything that was going on there. Rather than a Void, you kind of just had to throw him up in the air and ignore him, because nothing else you can really do. So, like, by not checking Invoker's items and seeing no TP, by not going to the right place, it kind of just tells me your sense of overall game understanding is lacking a bit. So I think, at the 5k level, that's really what defines being able to take it to the next step. I think a lot of people in 5k, they're usually pretty mechanically skilled. Like, I think your mechanics were perfectly fine there. I think your mechanics in lane were quite fine, other than not checking the cooldown of the Centaur. And then it just comes down to adjusting from game to game. So that's why I'm giving you this conceptual approach of ask yourself the right questions, try to figure out the answers. It also will help you watch replays. And so, like, if you're trying to learn a new hero or whatever, you can watch replays with the right questions and then watch what the other people are doing and learn from there. The fact that like all of that was not considered just tells me it's either never been brought to your attention and you've never thought about it, or you were just never really thinking in general about this type of stuff. And usually it's because most people don't think to think like this. Like that's usually why coaching is like, that's what I'm supposed to help you do. And right here is a perfect example of my question is, if you're gonna make a play, based on at least my view on the game, if you're gonna make a play, where's it gonna be usually?
If I'm going to make a play, where is it going to be usually?
Yeah, like what lane in order from top, mid, and bottom when you're dire is most likely to least likely going to be the play you make?
Probably bottom is the most likely.
Okay.
Middle's second and top's least likely.
Okay.
But obviously in this case it's different just because I can't really kill the one or two.
Yes, and that's great. So, like, that's how I think about Dota, right? Like, I'd go in order. So I'm immediately thinking bottom, and I'm like, that doesn't sound that great. Then I'd think mid, I'm like, I ain't killing a quap. And then I'm like, oh, what about profit? And it's like, at that point, if none of the cores die to you, then you just pick a support, like you go fucking ult somewhere, or you go join your team and hope to take a 4-on-4 when Void Chrono's on cooldown, if there's no straightforward play. But the next step is that you have no ult, right? So then you have to think the opposite way, where what is the most likely lanes for the opponent to be doing things, and where can I go that isn't going to be a part of the fight? And usually, if any of your other heroes are mid, that's not the correct lane to go to, right? Because if you bring 2 heroes mid, what do you think the opponent's going to do?
They're going to immediately go mid to protect the mid tower.
Yeah, they're just going to immediately respond to mid. If you are by yourself mid and just clearing the wave, that's obviously a bit different. But the main emphasis is, I could go into all types of stuff about this. You need to think, like, where on the map is it annoying for the opponents to come kill me, or like to, because obviously they're gonna, if they're any decent, they're just gonna run at you because you're a brewmaster with no 6. Like, I died countless times today as brewmaster with no 6, making a very similar mistake to you, because obviously I'm going through the same learning process that you are, and it's just really important to play the parts of the map that will not bring your teammates to you and not bring the opponent, like, conveniently to you. Like, they're not just going to be like, oh, there's a guy mid, go kill him. Like, that's very convenient for them. So think about it that way, and that's the best response I got there. I think you being mid here is the mistake, nothing else, right? It's not a mistake of mechanics. It's where you are on the map at given times. Too. Yeah, exactly. If there's no lane to go to that you feel good about, dude, just go hit some neutrals, man. That's what neutrals are for, because you don't feel like you can lane at all. Obviously, Brew feels pretty shit when it comes to hitting neutrals, but
yes, he does.
You gotta do what you gotta do. Like, this is a perfect example where you would want to be mid much more so than bottom, because you have your ult. And yes, you show up mid, but you're here late after everything's kind of broken out, and it's the complete reverse, right? Why are you in the lane where the opponent's likely not going to touch you? I understand you want to make a play, but it's not a play if your teammates aren't there. If you're showing up in a lane casually, that's just I'm deciding to stay here kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's this farming mode, lane clearing mode, and then there's, like, fight mode. So at this stage, I think it's reasonable that you walked bottom and we're ready to TP mid. But if you're going to do that, man, you need to TP the second some shit happens, because there's no way a fight should ever even be longer than 2 seconds before you're at it on Brewmaster. Obviously, if you're down by a lot like you are here, maybe it's not always easy to force the issue. So, like, say you don't feel like you can make a play. If I said, hey, man, I know you can't make a play on Brew, and I'll ask you now, what do you think your mindset should be then? If you can't take an objective as Brew, or a hero like Brew.
Just start farming to where I can get to it, start pushing out lanes and try to make them react to me, and then maybe overextend.
Okay, so that's an option. Now I'm going to redirect you in hopefully the right path. If your team doesn't want to make plays, what's usually the case for the other team?
They do.
Okay, so now answer my question. What can you think about with your ultimate if you don't want to take an objective?
If I hold on to it, then it's harder for them to make plays.
Okay, and then what should you use it for?
Whenever they try to make a play.
Okay, so then what do you need to think about when you're just farming with your ultimate off cooldown?
Probably where they want to make a play, so I can avoid that area.
Or you can be there. You want to be there. It's like there's certain heroes that want to put themselves in front of objectives and certain heroes that don't. I think a level 6 Brewmaster wants to be in front of objectives of the opponent, right? Like a Brewmaster with split, excuse me, wants to be in front of objectives. It's kind of like earlier today I had a Tide that was like, I defend towers, and it's like, yeah, if Tide has Ravage, he's a great hero to stand in front of towers. Timbersaw, great hero to stand in front of towers. Bristleback's great hero to stand in front of towers. Like, does Invoker want to stand in front of towers? Like, no. Does Sven want to stand in front of towers? No. Like, that's not what... So your job as a hero, if you have split, is think about what the opponent's likely objectives are and play that part of the map. Now, obviously, how far up can you play? Can you actually play in lane? Should you just be jungling near the tower? That kind of stuff. That comes down to you having that individual understanding of that specific game. Like, how much can I defend this? Do I just need to be right here? Am I actually standing in front of the tower? You know what I mean? Like, how you actually defend it is game to game and on you to just recognize, make an educated guess where out of position is or whatever. But notice how when you had split, you were playing bottom with no teammates, which means... And your team is just too weak to make a play.
Yeah.
So you need to be in the mindset of counterplaying. And then... since we talked about what your likelihood of making a play in terms of lanes, you have to think about the opponent's likelihood. Like, they're probably going to make their play top or mid. Like, most likely top, but like it's not crazy for people to make a mid play as opposed to top. So whatever I'm doing in the game, if they have 2 lanes they can potentially make a play on, and I'm a hero like Brew, I'm probably going to sit in one of those lanes ready to TP to the other lane. Does that...
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, because that covers all of their bases. If you're as Brew and you have split up and you're just giving them free objectives, you might as well just GG out, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, even if it doesn't feel good to fight, your only option on Brew is to fight. Like, I just played this last game and it felt pretty hopeless, but then we just took like 6 fights in a row, and Brewmaster is like, you know, you said it yourself, it's like, wow, this hero's pretty fucking strong in team fights. You know, they buffed him a lot, so his stuff does a lot in team fights. So it's just the right mindset. Every hero's a bit different. All these questions, though, when it talks about where to play on the map, like the reasons I've told you to play specific places, they all apply to every hero. It's just how they apply is different. So, like, right now, with no split up, what you're doing, I think, is perfectly fine. Like, you're applying a bit of pressure bottom, you're kind of playing away from where the opponent's going to make plays, but now you have split, so we need to make sure we have mana, we need to make sure we're with our team, ready to fight. Overall, this is pretty good, what you're doing right now. This is fine. No mana, though. I think your W, by the way, is, like, really good. I think you should value that more.
Okay.
Okay, so this is right. I'd say everything you're doing here, other than not having mana, is correct. I think you could have hit this. Yeah, you guys could have hit that. You just didn't communicate. Okay. I think with slightly better play, you guys would have killed the egg. I also think with more mana, you could have done more, maybe even ulted and killed the void, or forced a fight around the void. But overall, like, this is the opposite of what I've been talking about. Conceptually, you were actually in the right place, doing the right thing, but you didn't show up with mana, which is a big deal. You know, everyone does these type of mistakes. These mistakes are not, like, unique to you, right? These are all the potential mistakes that you can come up with. And the only difference in gaining MMR is how consistently all the things I'm telling you, you're doing correctly, right? Like, how often do you show up to fights with the right amount of mana? How often are you in the right place on the map? How often do you catch your spells correctly in team fights? You know, it's like, it all adds up to you being 5k, and if you want to be higher, being more than that, so. Okay, so you went for a Hood. I don't think your itemization's terrible. The only issue I have with Hood is that during your ultimate, it doesn't actually do anything, but it's like, it is allowing you to play more you're a more potent tower defender since you're doing it. Okay. Okay. This is all good. Nice. This looks similar to my last game. Okay. You put yourself in front of a tower the opponent was trying to take. You built items that allowed you to do so, like, up to you on that interpretation. And then you took a team fight, so overall, very good. So let's see what you do now. You go pick up a bounty, you see them all bottom. Your Invoker's feeding. I definitely think clarities are your best friend that you don't seem to have gelled with just yet.
Usually I buy too many, but I don't know what I'm... Not this game.
Overall, you see them bottom, you don't have split. I'd be very careful with your positioning, but since they're continuing to show bottom, I wouldn't be cutting the creeps like that. I'd probably just be standing on the tower, hitting it, you know. If the way I think about it is, if they TP in and I want to fight them, I'm posturing like you did. If they TP in and I don't want to fight them, I'm posturing backwards. So like right now you're kind of in like dodge mode, right? Until your ultimate's off cooldown. So just think about it that way. Like if they TP in, what exactly is going to be our response, and then sit on the tower accordingly. You may say like, you know, if they TP in one at a time, I want to fight them. But then you have to think like, what if a hero like Queen of Pain TPs in, daggers you while 2 of her teammates TP tier 2, and then now they're chasing you. You know, or you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Because the fight isn't always going to just have somebody blow up in front of you, especially on a hero like Brew. It's going to be a decently long fight that you're going to win.
Yeah.
So yeah, just think about it that way. But overall, like, the way you played the map right there, that was correct. Okay, so you have split. You're walking up behind him. A little bit awkward now. Oh, God. Okay. Yeah, your team was just a bit split off from you, but you do initiate the fight, so if you guys are going to fight, this is... I could think of worse things, but fighting into this team is real hard. That's for sure. But you guys seem to be winning, so... These are the type of calls where it's like, hey, I see what you were thinking. It's really hard to say from game to game whether or not it's right. If this didn't work, I wouldn't have necessarily hated the play. And since it did work, it's like, cool, it worked. You're trying to force a fight, so those are always really hard to gauge. So I'm not going to, like, over-analyze that, and I'm just going to say, hey, you looked to force a fight, you did, and you guys won, so good. Okay, so you're working on Vlad's now. I think that's reasonable. As far as I know, you haven't been checking items. If I had to ask, do you check items very often?
That's not a thing I'm good at.
Okay, so name some reasons why it would be important to check items.
Well, just so I understand their power spikes, first of all.
I like to think who threatens me, like who threatens me from farming, who threatens me in team fights, that kind of stuff. So it's like, if I was thinking about farming and who threatens me, who would I check for items?
Sorry, I was watching how stupid this play was that I just made. What you just ask?
If I'm farming and I'm thinking who kills me, who would I check for items? In this
probably
specific game.
Quap first, because of if she has an Orchid.
Okay.
And then Void. I think those are the main two.
What about Prophet? He could also kill you, right?
Prophet could have
like if Prophet went Orchid.
Yeah, she would need someone else because I can just cut the tree. But yes, she can go Orchid as well. That's right.
Yeah, so my point would be, like, if I look at this guy's items, I'm like, okay, he's damaged. He would need some sort of crowd control to follow up, which he just got. If I check this guy's items, I'm thinking the same thing. Like, he's Orchid, but I could just TP. So then I have to think, like, what duos of heroes kill me? Who kill, like, where are they on the map? Like, you know, does it inconvenience them to kill me? What are the likelihood that if they could, they would try to kill me? Especially if I'm a hero like Brew, I've noticed that like good players always try to kill me when my ult's on cooldown. So usually like I'll clear a wave and then very rarely am I actually clearing a wave and clearing the next one. Like very rarely, because guess what? If you show on a wave as a hero the opponent wouldn't mind killing, guess what they're going to do?
They're going to go at me.
They're immediately going to flock to you. So by the time you get to the second wave, they're there, if they chose to do that. So the way I look at it is unless they're on the map proving to me that they're not doing what I'm concerned about, I just have to assume that they're doing it. And so that can come down to just showing in one creep wave. That can come down to if you're playing certain heroes, like sitting in the trees and nuking from afar with like a blink dagger, you know. It's just important right there. That was like a very textbook. I'm a hero that it would make sense for the opponent to gank because I don't have my ult. I showed on a creep wave, and then I went to the next creep wave, and I died. You know, like, that's just a very textbook story of how someone dies in Dota. We all do it. I've seen 9K MMR players do it. But recognizing that's why it happened and trying to avoid that as often as possible is really good. So it's hard to be aware of all these things all the time, and that's why I hope when people are listening how impressive it is to think about these like 10K MMR players, because they just do this shit right so often.
Always.
And also, when you're like the teamfight initiating tank, if you die, guess what's most likely going to happen?
They're going to push high ground or a tower objective.
They're going to be as aggressive as they want to be on the map, and then what usually happens after that?
We chain feed.
Yeah. So a lot of times people have this delusion that it's like, why is my team fucking dying? And like even I say it sometimes. Like I'm a perpetrator of this as well, and it's like, if you're the hero that's supposed to be like this shield for the rest of your team, if you die, your team's choices are to either sit in base or die. Like that's what you've left your team with. And even at the highest level, sometimes the worst decision is to sit in base. So people will try to split the map even more or whatever to try to buy time for their guy to respawn and then thus feed. And in your bracket, people probably just don't think at all and just continue to feed, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we gave them Roche. Pretty big death there, obviously. You're kind of in a game where you had to do like 5 things right and 0 wrong in order to win. I think you've done a lot right previous to this. Like this 15 to 25 minute period, I thought you were playing pretty damn well. And then just a classic good old feed made the game super awkward. You guys have ultimate though, and you should not be afraid when you have ult. Nice. I actually like the pipe now that I'm seeing the game play out. Just the hood allowed you to play in front of towers.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack. Radiant structures are fortified.
Definitely got to lead off with the E. I'm sure you're aware of your mistake there.
Yeah.
The way I've viewed E in my short time playing Brewmaster is that in most games, it's like the ability to buy that extra 4 seconds to think about whether or not I should ult immediately. Some games, like, I've already thought, like, oh, if I E here and then ult at the end of my E, I'll be fine, and then I get, like, Ricky Clouded and die, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, I want you to think about your E that way, and sometimes it just doesn't work. But for me, for instance, like, as long as I'm making that educated guess that I should be able to do that, but then I feed like a moron, it's like, I'm learning a lot more that way, right?
Yeah.
So what I've learned is, like, when I'm playing Void Spirit, I'm not conceptually used to, oh shit, somebody's here, push W. Like, it seems so simple. It's, like, obvious, like, especially after I do it, it's like, or I don't do it, it's so obvious. And then, like, all I have to think about is who on the opponent I have to push W against. It's like, when I'm playing Slark, because I've played 700 games of Slark, I know exactly when I'm supposed to Dark Pact when I'm farming. I know exactly when I'm supposed to pounce away right after I pact. I know exactly when I have to ult at the start of fights rather than holding on to it. And it's like, these are the type of things where thinking about how your abilities should be used can accelerate your learning of the hero. These are things you would just learn if you were just playing, obviously, because every time a situation arises, it will, you'll naturally learn something just by not pushing a button correctly. But if you start thinking about your skills that way, ahead of time, you may still fuck up because you're not used to the hero, but you'll learn the mechanics much faster. So, just hope you're thinking like that now. Something to think about coming out of this.
It's interesting watching that play because actually I really think I would have survived that and been able to get the split off, and that team fight would have looked completely different.
Oh, absolutely. And if you don't survive using your E, then what? Like, let's pause for a second. If you don't survive after you've used your E, what did you learn from that?
I shouldn't have. That I just got ult. Well, that didn't work.
Yeah, you either just need to ult immediately, or you just shouldn't have been there. That's like your two choices. And that's pretty clear, right? Like, in terms of, oh, maybe this was just a bad fight, or I should have just ulted immediately. But by not using your E, for all I fucking know, you still would have died. You know? You really don't know. So that's just one step wrong on the... not step wrong. That's like one... That's taking 2 steps to go the same distance instead of 1 step. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, just something to think about. It's kind of like when I tell people they need to play aggressively on the map, and I can't teach them any further than that, because until they've played aggressive, I can't teach them all the things that would potentially go wrong if they weren't playing aggressive. But yeah, so... at this point, game's really rough. You guys obviously just fed bottom.
We were trying to bait me out and then make a play on the void. Didn't realize he had BKB. Again,
Okay.
not checking items, kind of like what you.
I'm glad I heard your thought there. Yeah, it's pretty important, especially as Brewmaster. BKB is by far your worst enemy here. Oh, brutal.
Yeah, the Invoker didn't hit it there. That one kind of hurt, but that's okay.
We'll fast forward a bit, make sure we get as much as we can out of this game, and then we'll call it here. So you guys haven't lost just yet. So now you're alive.
Maybe I'll ask your opinion on this.
Go ahead.
When I was watching this replay just before you got on, I also was kind of looking at my last hits, and I feel like I really should have been high on my last hits. But I don't know, I just want to ask you, I mean, should I have taken more time to like farm and step away, or
35 minutes, you have 175. I feel like this was a decent brew game where my lane went rough, and I had 218 in 42 minutes. So I don't think...
not necessarily?
It's not really a hero that hits creeps, to be honest with you. I don't like to think that way necessarily. I don't mind that you come into a coaching session with that concern. But like, if you look at a replay and you say, I don't feel like I had enough CS, unless you feel like you can go back through the game and find a specific moment where you think you should have been hitting creeps, it just doesn't benefit you to think like that, right? Because then it's like, okay, you just posed yourself a problem that has no clear-cut answer, right? Like, oh, I should have just had more CS. Like, that doesn't actually... What do you learn from that, right? So coming into this, that's fine. I haven't particularly noticed a point where you should have been farming more. Now, on the other hand, you dying around the map like you did at like 8 or 9 minutes when you died mid with no ult, and then when you died top, those type of things could lead to you having less CS. And it's not because you weren't hitting creeps. It's because when you were supposed to be hitting creeps, you were hitting the wrong places on the map. I think overall your understanding of like when to hit creeps, you know, Brewmaster's a pretty straightforward hero, right? He's really strong with his ult, really weak without it. So, I think overall you understand the right times to hit creeps. Now, starting to understand where to play on the map and why, based on when you want to fight, when you don't want to fight, when you're ahead and you're the one forcing the objectives, when you're ahead but you don't want to force objectives, you're just content farming and you're thinking about the opponent's play, when you're behind and you're worried about the opponent's objectives, when you're behind and you're worried about forcing objectives. Like, obviously there's tons of different combos of these situations, but it all becomes rhythmic, you know? When I'm losing, I think like this. When I'm winning, I think like this. You know, and then once you kind of get this down, everyone may say, like, BSJ, you can't tell me that pro players are, like, thinking like this every single game. Well, what happens is, you know, they've thought about it a bit every single game, and then at this point, situations just, yeah, exactly. The situations that they can recognize are so second nature that, like, they'll just see 3 factors that they're used to seeing, and without having to think about the individual factors, will just come to an immediate conclusion about where they should be. And usually, like, for me, when I haven't played recently, like, you know, I took, like, the 4 weeks off for ESL, there's so many games where my button pressing can't keep up with my brain. Because my brain is accustomed to thinking about the game correctly, but I can't actually push all the right buttons fast enough, because that's like the staying in shape portion of it. It's like, it doesn't matter if I know exactly how I'm supposed to run a mile if I haven't ran a mile in a month, you know? It's like, I'm going to be fucking out of shape. So, for people wondering about this kind of stuff, like, that's usually where that comes into play. And why Dota players can't exactly take a break, but after they take a break, if they play for like a week or two, they'll be right back where they started. So now, okay, so you throw the flop in the air. Fights are just awkward. You guys are down by 19k. Could be worse. I think we're going to go ahead and make sure we get as much as we can out of this coaching session and go to the next replay.
Cool.
Any final questions you have about that one?
No, I mean, it makes sense. It seems like I really need to check items that the enemy has and that my own team has, and then obviously just also thinking through, all right, who can I actually kill here and who can I not kill and.
Well, the cool
kind of
thing about it is a lot of the things I'm telling you to think about actually require you to check items.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you're worried about when you're farming mode and you're worried about who's gonna kill you, you have to check items. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you just don't know. So if you're thinking to yourself, "How do I die?" and then you just don't check items, like what are you doing? You know, you're not giving. So that's the cool thing is all these like habits I'm trying to get you into will actually come naturally if you just think about the other things
Check items.
in the game, right? Yeah, because if you're checking items, what that requires is for you to have some idea of why you're checking items. Like sometimes, like if I'm a Ricky, okay, let's just ask you a random fucking hero in the game. If I'm Ricky, what kind of items am I checking for in general on the opponent team? From the cores, from the supports, go.
Any sort of detection, first of all.
Okay,
If they don't have detection, then it's kind of a freebie.
absolutely.
Other items is Ricky. Obviously, in sort of silence, they can kind of
Silences or roots?
get you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Root as well. I would say that's the most important until obviously late game when there's abyssals or BKBs involved.
Okay, so that's worried about me dying. What about the other way around?
I guess Glimmer Cape.
Okay.
Yules.
Okay.
I mean, there's nothing I can really do to counter the Yules besides just be ready for him to Yules.
Yeah, keep going.
I mean, that's typically supports because Ricky's always looking for the backline.
What about like
first.
Force Staves, Ghost Scepters?
Force Staffs, Ghost Scepters as well.
Right,
Yeah.
like-
So basically, any sort of saving item to get him
So
out of.
yeah, so like the way I think about it is like if I'm gonna overcommit on a hero that has a Ghost Scepter, I might just throw the fight. But if I can blink on a support and all in them, and then like say I have a BKB afterwards or something, and that guy's gonna die for sure, maybe that makes it worth it, right? Like, so if I want to think about how I'm gonna play the fight, I actually have to know their items because I have to know who I'm gonna jump and why, and like who's gonna die to me and all that kind of stuff. Like maybe one of their teammates has a Glimmer or a Force Staff, so you know like if I go on this guy and the Keeper of the Light's behind him, I can't actually go on him.
Yeah.
You know, these are the type of things that add up a lot. So checking other people's items, it really does help you formulate your own game plan, but you have to be looking at their items with a reason. Like if I'm checking somebody's items, like I'm worried if I can't kill that guy. Like if I'm, Jug, I'll check for Ghost Scepters as often as I can. By all means, I think I still need to work on checking items. I've gotten way better at it over the years, but I think it still needs work. And that's why it's like the beauty of it is when people make the argument, this doesn't help if I'm 2K because you're telling me stuff that applies at 7K. It's like, no, like you need to learn how to check items no matter what bracket you're at. But your checking of items, it's like a linear progression, not just something where, okay, you're good at checking items now. That's it's not how Dota works. So, okay. Just want to give you a little random quiz thing there. So you're dodging a razor, or your Ursa is dodging a razor.
Yes.
What item would you consider potentially useful against razor that can be a
Speed.
Okay, so I probably would have gone Windlace, not
Yeah.
Gauntlet and 2 branches. Why even more so than Link is 5 damage not that important against razor?
Why even more so than Link?
Yeah. Like, what are some reasons why you would buy 5 damage worth of items?
So I could last hit easier.
Okay, so are you worried about Razor out-denying you? Why? Or do I not?
Well, he's going to steal all my damage, so it won't even matter anyway.
What I'm saying is, if he hasn't stole damage, are you concerned about him stealing your last, or like denying creeps?
No.
Why or why not? Why not?
He has, 40, 43 base damage or something
It's 48, I believe. Yeah, 48 with 2 branches. Okay. So the point is, right, that's going into the lane thinking, what issues am I going to face? How do I address them as best I can? And it's like, if he links me, does it matter how much damage I have? Not really, right? Like, if he steals 20 damage, there's no amount of items I could purchase that would make me do enough damage. But if he doesn't link me, or like if I can minimize the link damage, that's probably the most impactful. So like I probably in this lane would go Windlace and level my E first. Like that's probably what I would do.
That makes sense.
And so that's a perfect example of if you can start applying these concepts literally in the first 5 minutes of the game where it's a 1v1, it's a 2v2, you'll get way better at it. That's like learning to walk before you run, right? You're applying concepts in a vacuum rather than in the grand scheme of the game. If you can't do it now, you're gonna have a hard time doing it later. Let's just leave it at that. So I assure you, there was one patch when I was on VGJ that I learned. It was a 1v1 patch. It was a patch where a lot of the side lanes were 1v1s, and there was like two roaming supports or some shit, and like one of the side lanes ended up being a 1v1. And I learned that in certain matchups, if I didn't buy a salve, I went from winning the matchup to losing the matchup. Okay, like, just to make it clear to you and everyone else, I got flamed by my team saying if you bought a salve, you would have won this lane. Since you didn't buy a salve, you lost it. So it's like, at the highest level, it is very important that your 600 gold is spent perfectly. Yeah, absolutely perfectly. Am I expecting you to spend it perfectly every single game? No. But I'm expecting it to be more and more often as you think about these things, right? And it's the beauty of this specific stage is you're not actually playing when you have to process this information. You're just in the waiting stage, in the pick stage, discussing with your team or whatever. So,
yeah, a common trend you're about to see is that I typically go wand very early always, which now that you point out that it's 150 gold for, sorry, 250 gold for 3 stats, it's pretty garbage.
There are some games it's okay. Like, I've seen offlaners go wand, especially since, like, all these Bassy buckler items don't give stats anymore. It's just like, against Razor, I think Boots Windlace is probably really important.
Yeah.
I think no amount of, like, regen from a wand is going to matter as much as mitigating how long he links you for. Totally. And, minimizing the damage from that link. I also think you're in a lane where you just don't have the mana for both of your first and second skills. I just don't think you do. I kind of realized that as I've been playing Brew. I quickly came to the conclusion that, like, I watched a couple pro games and they went W, like level 1, and it was because they had, like, Rubik, and it would just be WW, you know, like both heroes hit W, the guy took like 200 damage, and it felt good. And then, so I kind of just defaulted to leveling my W every lane. And then, like, I just laned Brewmaster Sky against Ricky, and I would W the Ricky so my Sky could Q him, and then the Ricky would just push E, and our two abilities would literally do no damage. So I was like, oh. So I realized quickly that there's no way this is the skill build every single game. Certain heroes have, like, a very boring skill build. Like, they're just gonna go the same shit every fucking game, right? But Brewmaster specifically, I realized that, like, certain lanes I can max my W, certain lanes I go like 1-3-1, certain lanes I go 3-0-2. Like against Ursa, I just went 3-0-2 because my lane support was a bounty hunter, so it's like my W doesn't really do anything. Like, yeah, I guess he can shuriken, but is that really worth spending a point? You know, like, not really. Your E actually scales pretty well in terms of crit damage. 50 to 60% dodge chance is actually 20% better because you're getting hit 40% of the time instead of 50. So it's actually 20% better dodge chance. So like, it actually adds up. You'll dodge 20% more, like, of the attacks that you were previously not dodging. So either way, the point is that I don't think you have the mana to cast your Q and W. It's obviously not a good wand lane. So imagine right now, purely based on concepts of ability leveling and itemization, you're operating at like a 2 or 3 out of 10. Where 10 is you're itemizing and skilling perfectly so that your max potential in this lane could be reached. So it's like, what if instead of 10 and 3, you were 12 and 3, and you had an extra bit of mana and health because you dodged more damage or whatever. And also, like, Boots Windlace, or just boots in general, those items scale well because you're going to use them. Like, you know, if you're ferrying out mangoes and clarities and stuff, those don't actually scale. You know, like, wand kind of scales, kind of, because, like, but it doesn't scale in, like, the first 3 minutes of the game. You know, like, it's not an item you're going to make full use of unless you're against, like, a Bow Rider or a Bristle or a Shadow Deep, something like that. So now you've just got 2 1-point wonders that you can't afford to use both. So every time you use a skill, instead of your Thunderclap going from 90 to 160, by the way, both of your skills almost, like, or not almost double, but they both significantly percentage-wise increase in damage. This one increases by 60%, this one increases by, like, 80%. So, and they both go up in mana cost minimally or not at all. Okay, so... I've learned you can kind of use your E to secure range creeps especially. I realized that against Ursa. Like, I can just push E, walk up and kill the range creep, and then back off. You know, obviously 80% of the time it's going to be good. And I'm willing to take that risk for 35 mana.
Yeah.
Like right here, I would have just E'd and hit the range creep. Whenever I think about utilizing a skill, I think, like, what's the downside of it being on cooldown? And it's like, am I willing to have my E on cooldown to get this last hit? Like, am I being aggressive on this guy anyway? No, I'll probably just have to defensively posture a bit more for the next 20 seconds. Is that worth it? Like, aren't you kind of just consistently playing defensive anyways? I feel like you're playing like you don't have your E all the time, rather than using your E and then not playing like it. This was a good recognition, a bit late, but better late than never. I would just farm that pole camp. I would definitely just farm this. With the 2 creeps you had. Are you really that concerned when you're level 4 and he's level 5 about denying him XP as much as you are about making sure you get every ounce of XP you can?
I mean, in this situation, I was more close to my tower, so he couldn't just link me and beat the crap out of me.
What I'm saying is, right here, when you pulled at 5 minutes and 45 seconds...
Yeah.
Are you thinking you can walk up to this lane when it's here?
Where it's
you can't
at right
see
now,
my
no.
mouse. Sorry, where it is right now.
No, I don't think I can go up there right now.
So, what you can do though is you can defend your tower. That's what you just said, and I agree with that. But what you're doing is when you pull this camp, you're actually denying your creeps. Like, you're auto attack denying your own creeps
as well. Yeah.
First off, denies with nobody around doesn't do shit anymore, right? At least right now
I'm not
it doesn't.
used to that yet.
Yeah. Get used to it. You know, trust me, we all have to adjust, but immediately put that in your mind. But then second off, what's more important to you, denying Razor XP or giving yourself XP?
Probably give myself XP because I need that level 6 spike.
Would you agree that every hero would approach that question differently?
Yes.
Okay, but is it an important question to ask yourself, right? Like,
yes.
Very important. So, like, if you answer to yourself, it's more, like, I've had people ask me types of questions like this where that's the only way I can answer them. Meaning, like, they'll say, BSJ, am I supposed to pull the tower? Or, sorry, am I supposed to push the wave and farm jungle? Or am I supposed to pressure the tower? Or am I supposed to... you know, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, well, what's more important, your timing or his? You know, like, if it's his timing, say, like, if I'm giving an offlaner like Brewer level 6, maybe it's worth hurting my own efficiency just a bit, because once he gets 6, I have to leave lane. So then, if I have to leave lane, overall my efficiency will be a loss, even though I'm getting technically more at the 5-minute mark, right? Like, these are questions where if you answer them correctly, it will help you a lot. So... the reason why I'm saying this is if you answered that question the way in-game, like right now, don't you agree you would have immediately started hitting these creeps and trying to kill this small camp?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the whole point that I'm trying to make to you is I'm not disagreeing that you go back to lane and defend your tower. I'm disagreeing that, like, right now you're not just auto-attack killing that small camp. Notice how, like, here again, you're going to deny your own creep, right? See that? Yeah. Between the time that you're at your camp, you could have probably gotten rid of the same amount of creeps, maybe even kept 1 or 2 of your creeps alive, and you would have had more creeps to do exactly what you just did even. Like, because if they're going to pressure your tower, I actually don't want my own creeps dead, right? Because I want... so what you did here was reasonable in regards to, you know, pulling the lane back and then defending your tower. That was all reasonable. But I think you can agree with me that you just missed out on, like, probably 20% efficiency there.
Yeah,
right?
Which would have actually probably given me my level 6,
yeah.
most likely.
Yeah, you could have easily been level 6 right now. So it would be really close. And it's like, if you weren't level 6 with that small camp, okay, you know, that's life. But it's just like the same thing on not pushing your E in that team fight. So
yeah,
you'll never know. Okay, so proves that with the small camp you would not have been level 6.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
Obviously, you can do maths on that, but I usually don't. Okay.
Structures are fortified. Radiant's middle tower
So,
is under
do you think Razor is a good hero to try to kill with your ult?
Definitely.
Okay. So, did you have to rotate this game?
Nope.
Oh, absolutely. Like, between all their 3 cores, who's the best? It's Razor. Should that guy be in your lane anymore? No. Like, is he bad for being in your lane still? Of course. Like, did you punish it? Yes. Like, that's the beauty of being a 5K. Sometimes people just deliver you fucking kills.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. I don't know if you thought about that at all. Like, Razor's just the best hero. I'm going to stay here and not rotate, but...
Didn't.
Yeah, but a lot of the times, the reason why things work out are very obvious if we think about them, right? Like,
Totally.
it's pretty obvious why that worked. As opposed to the last game. So
Dire's top
your SF's nuts for sure.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
Okay. Quiz question. Based on what you just saw here and here, like you just saw Razor backing off and you see 2 enemy heroes top, what's the next 30 seconds going to look like from the opponent? Most of the time.
They're going to need somewhere to go, and I'm the closest one to them, so they're probably going to start rotating up towards my tower.
Would you say 80% of the time those 3 heroes are going to walk down the lane?
Yeah,
Okay, so
I would.
are you in fight mode or not?
Well, in 30 seconds, I will be in
Okay.
fight mode.
So what
But
should you
right
do right now?
Is under attack.
Probably push out the wave and then back out.
Yeah, I would clap, kill the range creep, maybe kill that melee creep, the one that's getting hit first, and then run away,
Exactly.
right? Like,
Yeah.
So that's an understanding of what mode am I in, what's the opponent going to do. Like, I watched you not clear this wave with a sense of urgency, and I'm like, does he not realize he's about to get ran at, and he doesn't have his ult? Like, that's what I'm thinking to myself. Like,
Yeah.
I'm watching those, I'm like, wow, he's about to get ran at. Does he not realize this? So that's another way to think. Just a whole other thing to rack on there. It's like, great, the guy overextended, but to be honest, I think that's more the other guy pegging. And it would have still been, if all I know is the same play would work if you cleared the wave and the guy tried to dive you. And it's more likely to work the other way around. Maybe that guy's just up on Pega, though. I don't think I would rely on the opponent being bad. Like, I think that guy was supposed to bully you away, but then not dive you. Like, that's pretty much what went wrong there. He was supposed to, like, hit you a few times, force you out of lane, but then diving you was pretty crazy. So now you pop your ultimate again. Great. But now you don't have
Middle tower
ults.
is under attack.
Oh, okay, I see you were low, so you backed. I was wondering what was happening there. Almost have Vlad's. I think you could kill one more camp. You had mana. I think you could have killed one more.
Yeah, and
Yep.
I didn't use my E either to run back faster.
Yeah, I just definitely think you had mana with E plus Q to clear one more camp. And are you looking to be in fights immediately?
Nope.
No. So this is a perfect example when you said earlier, I feel like I should have more CS. Like, instead of thinking that way, I immediately look at this and be like, well, your team doesn't immediately need you. You know, you can afford to clear one more camp because you have the mana. If you don't have mana, is it worth for you to be off map for another fucking 30 seconds right-clicking a camp? It's like, no. But if it takes you an extra 8 seconds to go clear one more camp because you have both of your spells, you know, that's different. So you do end up going bottom, which is the correct play. Let's rewind here, though. This is just a great example where you saw Razor bottom. Do we want to run into Razor casually? Do you know what I mean by casually?
I didn't think I did see him bottom. Did I see him and I just didn't notice it? Oh, yeah. I guess I would have when I was running back to heal.
Yeah,
Right.
this is also stuff when you think about what lane you're going to, thinking about who's where. You know Razor TP'd here like 60 seconds ago. You know there's 2 heroes top. You know, like, Tinker doesn't offer any lockdown, but he could be there at any moment, assuming he has boots of travel. You don't really know if he does or not. You could make a guess maybe because his game is bad, but for all you know, this guy could have boots of travel.
Yeah.
So that factors into your decision of like how aggressive you play and shit. Because like if you run at somebody aggressive and suddenly a Tinker TP's behind you, it's like shit, you know. The point being though is, do you know what I mean by do you want to run into a Razor casually?
No.
So what I mean by
don't.
casually is there's no team fight breaking out. You're not going on them. You're both just farming.
Yeah, no, because it completely ruins my next 30 seconds of doing whatever I
Yeah.
want to do.
So whenever I'm in farm mode, I like to not only think who kills me, but if I'm going to be farming, is there heroes I would like to run into casually? Like if I'm Razor and you don't have ult, I would love to be in your lane.
Hmm.
But then if I'm Razor and I'm like, well, if the guy kills me, I don't want to be in his lane anymore. So it's like if I'm a Razor against Brew or Void or something, I'd love to be in their lane because if they show up, I just link them and run at them. But if they have their ults, then they just bring a +1 and kill me, right? Like, so
Yeah.
a lot of Dota is not only understanding lane matchups, but it's also understanding farming matchups. Like, if both heroes are just farming and run into each other on the map, who benefits?
Yeah.
And that's something you can absolutely have come into play when you're like, maybe your team doesn't have clear-cut objectives to take, but what if you're a Brew with ultimate and you just want to apply aggression? You know, you don't have to be, if it's not a close game like right now where you're 6k ahead, I wouldn't say every ultimate you have has to be a 5-man team fight, does it?
No.
This would be a great play if you had ult. Do you see what I'm saying about this?
Yeah, totally. Actually, I don't know if you know this.
Go ahead.
I was wondering if he starts linking me and I split.
He'll stay locked onto your Earth Spirit, yeah. Earth
Okay.
Panda.
That's what I figured, but
But even
I
then,
wasn't
like, he's
entirely
stealing damage, but you're not dying.
sure. My other two deal more damage, for sure.
Yeah. But the main thing is also, like, if you get a +1 immediately, he's gonna die. Like, you could literally say, somebody TP, and then, you know, he dies. But instead, you just took 400 damage, didn't do a single amount of damage, right? That's what I mean by casually running into somebody who benefits. It's like, obviously, Razor's the better hero. Remember, what I talk about, I don't know if you ever hear this, but what's the reason people will not be aggressive?
I don't know what you normally say.
Because they're fucking scared of you, bro.
Radiant's
So if you don't have
Oh,
ult, you have to worry about every hero in the game being aggressive on you because you're weak as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, whenever you're a weak carry with no farm and people go like, why are they fucking running at me all the time? Well, why do you think they're fucking running at you? Because they're not scared of you, right? Like, that's what they're going to do. They're going to run at the guy they're not scared of.
Radiant's bottom tower.
Okay.
Radiant's bottom Dire's top tower is under attack. Radiant are scanning.
Like, if you're a Void with Chrono, oftentimes people will not run into you. Because they're scared of you.
Radiant's top tower is under attack.
So you're saving here. What's the plan?
Oh, my money?
Yeah.
I don't know what my plan is there.
Okay.
I either just haven't bought it yet, didn't notice how much money I had, or I don't know what my plan is there.
Okay.
So I do end up, and this is what I decided it was a mistake later on. I did end up buying a Radiance this game, just because I felt like I had such a good start, and I figured I could just snowball off of it. But then we ended up having such a lead that it actually slowed us down from winning, where I think a lot of smaller items would have allowed us to go high ground and finish the game earlier. So it actually ended up delaying the game by probably 5 or 6 minutes, I felt like.
Would you consider Radiance to be a... What kind of item would you consider Radiance to be on Brewmaster specifically? Like, on Brewmaster specifically, in what games would you go Radiance and why?
One reason I went Radiance here is just also I figured I could go Radiance Blink, and if I knew Tinker was in the area, I could blink in the area and then keep him from blinking.
Okay.
Um,
So my
So
question is, like, in my game...
What?
So, okay, what type of fights does Brewmaster take? Long or short fights?
long fights.
Okay. So, Radiance in a long fight does what?
Just slowly ticks down everyone.
It just does damage. So, when would I go Radiance on Brewmaster?
If the fights are really drawn out.
And...
And if they have a lot of physical and you want dodge, or if they have summons.
No. I just asked you what it does on Brewmaster specifically.
Oh, and it works through his ulti as well.
Yes. So if the fights are long on Brewmaster specifically, when would you buy Radiance? What does the item do on Brewmaster exclusively?
When we need to just deal more damage.
When you need more damage. Does your lineup need more damage?
Definitely not.
Okay. Came to a smart conclusion together, sir. So, like, it's nothing more complicated than that. Radiance on Brewmaster is a damage item. That's all it is. It's not a farming item. It's not like for the mischance, like there's just better items if you're going for the 17% mischance. It's because the fights are going to go long and your team needs damage. You have Lina, Ursa, SF, Snapfire. What does that lineup not have?
Control.
Control. What else?
Sustain.
Sustain. What else? I'd say that's pretty good summary. I'd say aura builders in general, though. Like, nobody's on your team's going to build any auras, right? Sure. And that's not necessarily sustain, but that is kind of the same thing. So what I'm trying to say is understanding what an item's purpose is and then looking at your team and looking at their team. It doesn't matter if you're ahead or not. I literally was in my game, last game, and I was like, man, we can't really win these fights in like the first 10 seconds, and I have Void Spear and Necrophos cores. We have some serious damage issues. So I just went for Radiance. Like, that's why I did it. I didn't go it for literally any other reason. So the fact that you're going a damage item with a lineup that has 4 damage dealers and no sustain aura builders explains a lot to you why the item probably felt pretty trash.
It felt bad right after I got it.
Right. So but that's the way I want you to think about it. Not, I'm greedy and we're ahead. That's not how Dota works. I hate it when people say I'm ahead by a Midas. No, it's like, if I'm ahead, but no item allows me to actually do anything on the map, then buy a Midas. But like, oh, by the way, right here, I'm going to open your eyes to something that I'd say most 6K players don't even think about.
Okay.
So you guys just want to fight, right? Mm-hmm. If you had to guess between the 3 heroes that are cores in a lane, if you guys just want to fight and you're not taking a tower, which core should farm the lane?
We just want to fight which core should farm the lane. The one closest to the next item, or whoever could do it fastest. Or whoever, I'd say whoever's closest to the next timing.
I guess that's reasonable, but it is not the answer 99% of the time. So, how many heroes are needed to clear this wave?
1.
So, out of all the heroes on the team, would you agree the hero that has nowhere else to go would be the best one?
Also the one who doesn't have a TP, which is probably the Ursa, who I believe just came in.
Mind fucking blown. Stop being fucking inefficient shits, you 6K players. When somebody TPs to a fight, let them have the fucking creep wave. I'm talking to chat and all the people in my games. So, if I'm this Ursa and you're farming the creep wave, I'm kind of just like, what? What should you do immediately after winning this fight?
By the way, you cut out.
Okay.
I'm blown for like probably 15 seconds.
Nice. I went on my nice rage there and you cut out. You didn't need to hear it anyway. It was an internal frustration directed at the general community. So if I'm this Ursa and we just won this fight and I just TP'd here and you farm my creep wave, what am I thinking?
What do I do?
Yeah, what now?
What do I do now?
What now, on the other hand, after you win a fight, you can consider taking objectives, but what else can you consider? When I say winning a fight, you just killed 2 heroes. What else can you consider?
Getting deep vision.
How about, do I want to fight more? Like, if I just blew 3 ultimates, am I fighting more?
Yes, because I didn't use my my ulti that time around.
Yeah, so what should you do immediately after you kill this Venge? Hindsight 2020, right now you have all the time in the world to think.
Push down the lane, try to force a fight.
Why does the fight have to happen right here? Are you guys really taking that tower in the 28 seconds they're dead?
Oh, that's true. I guess we could TP top, take that top tower, and set up for Roche.
How about you just follow your SF to top especially, right?
Yeah.
Like, your SF's running at a guy. You could have TP'd top, you could have TP'd mid. Anything that makes you run at heroes more. Because, like, if they have 2 heroes dead and you show up mid with ult, what's anyone on their team going to do?
Run.
Okay. So how does that form map control, right? Like, imagine the map control acquired during their 2 deaths if you do that. Does anyone have to die to make that a map control positive?
Anyone on my team?
Anyone on their team. I'm saying if you TP mid and run down the lane, do you have to actually kill somebody to make that a positive map control movement? Like, you gain map control off of it? No, you just walked into a lane where they can't touch you.
Yeah.
And so this Ember Spirit who's farming mid, is he farming mid anymore? Is this Coddle who might live top, is he living anymore? No. So, like, this is a big thing. When you, like, I've noticed, like, all the way down to 3K, I just talked to Kali about this today, when you kill somebody, please make full use of it. It is the absolute crucial aspect of being a better Dota player, is establishing as much map control and net worth advantage as possible when you kill opponents. Like, it is so important. So you killing somebody and then sharing this wave with your Ursa and spending mana to do so is like blasphemy. Like, it's actually like terrible on 5 different fronts. So really important. And if this game were closer, it would matter way more.
Yeah.
I feel
my mindset was push the wave as quickly as possible, but I can definitely see how that is like probably the 8th best option in this case.
Yeah, and the point is you want the overall map control, how many lanes are getting shoved in, how much the opponent can farm while their teammates are dead. You want that summary to be as much in your favor as possible.
Yeah.
So the only benefit of pushing a lane is if you feel like it creates pressure, or you're taking an objective, and you're not taking that tier 2, nor are you creating significant pressure against a hero like Tinker, who can just bots in and kill the wave.
Yeah, nor is that tower nearly as important as either of those top 2 towers.
It's also like, if you're going Radiance, like in my game, we couldn't really do anything anyways, so I went Radiance as a way of like, hey, I'm going this greedy item, once we get this, we can hit a huge power spike and maybe look to do something. You're turning your do-shit hero into a do-nothing hero by going Radiance. Do you kind of see that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Totally.
So these are the type of games that you want to avoid going greedy items. It's like, when I see cores with absolute free farm that could just wreak havoc on the entire map, and they go Midas, it's like, your do-shit hero just turned into do-nothing because you went Midas. Yeah. So, go ahead.
No, it was funny because right after I got Radiance, my SF's like, hey, let's go high ground. He was the highest ranked here. He said, hey, let's go high ground, get a pipe so we can push through all the spam and go high ground. I was like, oh, I just got this Radiance. It's like, I guess I'll go pipe then because we need to go high ground. So yeah, that's why I said it. I felt like it pushed us way behind because in hindsight, pipe is significantly better for the entire team just to push high ground here.
Yeah, it's just, I more so look at it as like, my team has damage, what else could I build? Like, you know, you want your lineups to always be as well-rounded as possible, and any holes in the draft are solved by only one thing in the entire game, and that's items.
Yeah.
Like, no draft, for the most part, has everything built in. Like, literally everything. So usually you need to build some semblance of items to complement your team's strengths and mitigate the weaknesses. So you do go for this greedy Radiance. Yeah, you didn't even do anything that fight. Like, you're not a part of the kills, right? Like, you don't do anything in regards to killing heroes in this game.
Yeah.
I would say at this point, I've said enough. I don't think I need to see any more of this game. Like, you've already heard too much about what you've done wrong. The game's pretty stompy at this point. Anything that goes longer is because of your improper itemization and something you kind of learned on your own. Obviously, you're 3-0-6, and the average player would be like, God, I'm owning. And it's just like, to be quite blunt, like, your itemization shows like very low understanding of your role in this game, right? Like, it really does. So, I want you to be like confident that your mechanics and overall play is pretty good. That's why you're 5.5K. And I think your like thoughts about itemization, thoughts about your role in the team, thoughts on where to farm the map and why, thoughts of like, you know, who do I want to run into on the map, thoughts on who I want to ultimate. Like, these are pretty, honestly, simple concepts for someone of your Dota, you know, prowess to master, or not master, but like quickly pick up. You know, you're gonna quickly pick up these things. So I want you to be like, wow, this game would have been even easier if I had done all these things correct on top of what I've already done. So, do you have any final questions before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. Honestly, it makes sense, and it's the main reason I wanted this is because I do feel like I have a hard time when I'm watching my game noticing. Like, I'll look and be like, wow, I screwed up right there. But I have a hard time seeing the 2 or 3 steps beforehand that led to that screw up.
Yeah.
So and there's a lot of times that I'll make a decision like I did the Radiance and be like, wow, this sucked. And now I know. But a lot of it's I know it's just kind of mindset and having that understanding beforehand. So that's the main reason why I wanted to have this coaching session. Sorry, I'm really
I'll just be
parched.
very clear on top of everything you're saying that I had a game, I believe it was on like my Smurf when I was like 6K or something, and I just felt like going Radiance on Jug, and for the memes or whatever, like because people were doing it on Miracle, but like when you looked at Miracle's game, he had like 2 heavy physical damage cores. He had like a troll mid and like a Beastmaster off lane, so he will Radiance in order to give his lineup like multiple sources of damage, and Ghost Scepters didn't counter his entire lineup. On the other hand, I went Radiance when I had like a mid Storm and a off lane Underlord or something, and then we just did no fucking damage because they built a pipe. And the point is like, it's to have the most impact on the game is not the item that gives your hero the highest level of impact. Like when you think I'm gonna solo carry this fucking game with a Radiance, like that's not. It really isn't about how you win. And there was one game, or that isn't how you win. There was one game I remember I was playing Slark, and I didn't trust my teammates. Like, to be honest with you, it was like one of those, like, I'm rank 50 and they're rank all, like, 3 a.m. where they're all ranked 2,000 or something. And even though I had, like, Lion and some other disabled support, I went Orchid Nullifier in that game on Slark, like, 4th and 5th item. And then late game, we just had no tankiness, no durability, and, like, frontliner, and a bunch of stuns. And we just lose the game late because our lineup is not well-rounded. So it's like, the way to solo carry games is to fit your role in the team perfectly. Like, obviously it's much more likely if you are the actual carry hero to have the win happen, meaning like if you're the enabler, you're still at the mercy of your teammates kind of just feeding. But like if you're this offlaner that's building like the correct items for your team, the items that your other cores need, you're building items properly in lane and all this kind of stuff where your hero's going to fit the mold perfectly, you're just going to win way more games than you lose. Like even if you aren't the carry. So just want to make sure I've learned that lesson myself, and it's really important for you and anyone else here to learn it too. So thanks for signing up, man. Any final thoughts?
Appreciate it. One funny thing, you mentioned your Smurf. About a year and a half ago, it was probably like 2.5 years ago. I was playing a game, lost, and my brother texted me the next day. He's like, "Dude, I saw you get your butt kicked by BSJ on his Smurf." And you actually recorded it, and I found it on YouTube and watched your point of view of you kicking my ass. So appreciate it.
That's funny, dude. That's a good story,
man.
I appreciate you telling me.
I appreciate your time. Appreciate you doing this for me, and looking forward to watching more of you.
Yeah, right on, dude. Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah, I'll see ya.
That was a nice guy.